to Clara. Hello and welcome back to coverage here at GP Santa Clara. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Eduardo Sajglik, and we are all set for round number 7. This is our penultimate round here. In team competitions, we only play 8 rounds on day number 1. Normally, we would be playing 9, but we are playing a win in day 2 here, as both teams are sitting at 5-1. So with a win this round, they will be locked for day number 2 coming back to battle tomorrow, regardless of what happens next round. So that's a big step, of course, for all the teams. I mean, you know, they got to work their way along through the days. And we see our modern match in the middle here. This is Efro, Eric Froehlich, the Hall of Famer. By the way, everybody on his team is in the Hall of Fame. Kind of a nice luxury to have. And Eric, actually with the perfect start, he's got Goblin Guide for his burn deck. He calls it Ramanop Red. It is not that. But it is the mono red burn deck that you will see in Modern. And this is beautiful for Eric because he has the Goblin Guide. That's great. That's his most consistent source of early damage. And now his opponent has taken a turn to cast Ether Vial, which, while powerful, is a little slow.
Right. So the play draw here is extremely important because...
By the way, is this the humans deck?
Yes, exactly. So the matchup here is, burn versus humans. I think game 1, it comes down a lot to play draw. I think burn on the draw normally loses this match because Thalia, Kitesail Freebooter, and Meddling Mage are kind of too much to fight game 1. But on the play, you have a chance because, as you can see, the Goblin Guide can hit for damage. The Thalia is a lot less effective. Here you can see it getting Rift Bolted at lower cost.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the Goblin Guide also revealed a Freebooter earlier. Freebooter is pretty important, but it doesn't block Goblin Guide. So
that's right.
Right. Step 1 for Rob, who's still favored, is deal with make sure you can block this Goblin Guide. That's step 1.
He's going to go ahead and activate the vial now. So I'm assuming we're going to see the Freebooter. But this is an interesting spot because Eric has Searing Blaze in his hand, and ouch.
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot of damage this turn once again.
Sure, but then Rob can decide to either cast Mantis Rider or Reflector Mage that are in his hand. It's probably best to cast the Mage this turn. Make sure that you don't take the damage anymore.
Also prevent any top-decked Goblin Guides from doing their thing.
Right, yeah. The fact that it's a 2-free body is very strong. So
whoa, look at that hand from Froehlich. He actually didn't cast anything here. He knows he can get back whatever spell gets stuck underneath there anyway, it looks like.
There's 2 Searing Blaze.
And he's got double Searing Blaze. Okay.
If Eric only had 1 Searing Blaze, then for sure he would have fired it off.
Wait, so his hand is Skullcrack, double Searing Blaze, Bolt?
Yes.
Eduardo, in your expert opinion, would you call that good?
I would. He's lacking 1 card, though.
Which is?
Shockland from Rob. So, I mean... but that's a key thing, right? It's important that Rob is not the one who's actually dealing himself damage. He doesn't need to hurt himself to play his mana base out.
Yeah, when we talked about this deck on our break there, you mentioned the mana base being the most important thing about it, and it's really showing here. His mana base is absurd. Ancient Ziggurat, Cavernous Souls, he's got a Seachrome Coast. None of those dealt any damage to him, and they can cast anything in his deck almost.
Right, they come into play untapped.
Yeah.
You know how in Legacy Underground Sea's a good card?
Yeah.
Well, how about like City of Brass without damage?
With no damage, and even some upside in some cases, right? Like
yes.
the Cavern and stuff.
Yes, yeah. The Cavern means that, like, if you were playing against a blue deck, for example, Spell Snare is okay against these creature decks, not when they have Cavern of Souls.
That's right. Okay, land number 4 here for Froehlich. That was his draw step, and he's going to go ahead and use Searing Blaze to just get rid of the Reflector Mage right away. Now, he does not recast... He could have recast his Goblin Guide there, right?
Actually, no.
Where did it go?
But the reason for that, and he would have wanted to. That is correct.
I see. It was still waiting.
Yes.
For the Reflector Mage ability to go away.
If you were wondering why that card was banned in Standard, this might be a
fresh reminder for me. Thank you.
No,
the good news for Eric is that he has plenty of stuff to do otherwise with the Skullcrack and the Bolt in the meantime. Though that's interesting. Rob's going to take away the Bolt, and now the Freebooter's actually safe.
Yes.
Skullcrack can't hit it.
This is why this matchup's really hard for Burn. You can see it here. The freebooter takes some damage, and then, I mean, Eric drew supremely well.
Yeah.
He was on the play. He played Goblin Guide. He managed to deal damage with it twice. I might have been even a third time, I believe. The Searing Blazes are perfect for this matchup. They dealt with a creature. They dealt damage. And even then, like, is he really that far ahead, if you could say that? Like,
kind of doesn't seem so.
Right. Like how effective would, say, Goblin Guide be here?
Right. It doesn't attack very well into the 3/3. Now this gets kind of interesting. An Eidolon of the Great Revel. And Eric does have a life advantage at the moment, but he's scheduled to take 3 or maybe 4 damage in the air next turn.
Yeah. Yeah. And
maybe even more if there's another Manus Rider.
Yeah, and you know what's the worst part for Eric here? There's an Aether Violet free.
Of course.
So, yeah.
This could be an explosive turn for Rob Pisano.
Well, yeah.
This is getting interesting.
Okay, let's see what's here. A Reflector Mage.
Oh, boy. Of course, that's an Aether Vial, so he just gets to send that thing packing. And I think, you know what else he has? I think he has Phantasmal Image in his hand.
He does. That was a good spot.
Huh. So he could just wipe Eric's board here? Oh, he's actually considering just making another Manus Rider, I think.
Yeah, and that seems like the best line.
I think so, too.
The Goblin Guide is probably not going to do much against this Reflector Mage. Unless Eric draws another
Or
Searing
the
Blaze.
2 Manus Riders that have Vigilance.
No, yeah.
It's a lot of blocks.
We're past the Goblin Guide point of the game.
Agreed, yes. He now has 9 toughness to put in front of it. But that was a huge swing. He just attacked for 7. Eric was at 14. He's down to 7 now.
Yeah.
One turn for Eric.
Yeah, and the amazing hand that Eric had earlier, well, it kind of got dismantled by Rob not taking damage from his own lands. The Bolt being taken by the freebooter. The Goblin Guide no longer being able to attack. So you can kind of see why this matchup is so favorable for the Humans deck. Even though Eric basically got all the tools he wanted. Like, if you were going to sculpt a good starting hand, Eric's hand was that for this matchup. It's very hard
It
to...
seemed like it.
Yeah. And no, it was good. And, sure, it seemed like it. And sure, it was great. But that's the problem. The Humans deck is very good at dismantling the Burn deck.
And it looks like Eric's line is going to have to be to try to survive here. So he's going to cast Rift Bolt to get back a Lightning Bolt. If he cracks a Bloodstained Mire, he'll go to 6. He can Lightning Bolt one of the flyers, take 5. Wow, he's just not in good shape.
Right, and the Eidolon...
Like you said, the time of Goblin Guide has passed.
The time... Goblin Guide, your time has...
We're very sorry, Goblin Guide, but it's time for you to go.
Yeah, Goblin Guide blocking is a sad sight.
That's not what you want to be doing if you're in Eric's seat.
Well, it's okay. Sometimes you block and then just hope to draw your last burn spell.
True, it's true. Remember, he does have a Skullcrack in his hand.
Yeah, so here, for Eric to win, he needs to deal... There needs to be free burn spells going to head because he doesn't have currently access to a Boros Charm.
No.
So he can't, double top deck on this one.
Man, I can't believe the point you made earlier, Eduardo, is so strong about how absurd it is that Rob has taken no damage.
Yes.
Imagine if Rob had just cracked 2 fetches or played 1 untapped Shockland. He would be at 6, and Eric's whole world would be opened up. He could go bolt you, chump block, throw the Skullcrack at your face. That is completely different now that Rob has taken a grand total of 0 damage from his lands.
Right, and people sometimes underestimate the power of mana bases in Modern. And this is also why, say, Merfolk, right, another creature deck with Aetherval, is not a good matchup for Burn. Burn benefits is at its best when either the lands in front of them are dealing them damage, so like when they have tricolor decks or that sort, or they give them time. Like a Tron deck gives you plenty of time to draw your lands.
And Eric's in desperation mode here, taking quite a bit of damage, but trying to set something up, maybe top decking Boros Charm into Boros Charm. That was a Boros Charm off the top, Eduardo.
Let's see. Rob
he takes 5. Oh, but Eric's at 3.
Yeah. And that's the problem, is this Mantis Rider Phantasmal Image.
The 1-2 punch are both lethal.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Eric having the option to cast the Eidolon of the Great Revel, but choosing not to because it probably doesn't change. It doesn't really change the clock.
That's right. And so all Eric can do is scoop him up And that's game number 1 going to Rob Pisano. Though we will note here, none of the other games have finished. That was our first one. So this is still early in round number 7 here in the cut. This is our last show of the day. And right now we're watching 2 teams vying for day 2. Let's take a look at our legacy match. Ben Friedman versus Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa. And what is Ben on here?
So I'll look at Ben's list, but he looks...
You don't even need to at the moment because I see 2 copies of True Name Nemesis doing their thing and tearing up Ben Friedman's life total at the tune of 6 per turn.
Interestingly, Ben does have a main deck answer.
Some type. What does he have? Is it Toxic Deluge?
That would be a really good one, actually. That would probably be better than the actual answer.
What does he have?
Diabolic Edict.
Okay, so he can get rid of one of them.
And then Snapcaster Mage.
To do it again? Okay.
That is Ben's current path to victory.
All right, so he's in a tough spot. We've got Rich Hagen here who has some updates for us, Rich.
I do, yeah. I'm just out on the floor looking at some of the 5-1 matches, and I focused in on Logan Nettles, Vidianto Wijaya, and Jonathan Angelescu, who's one of those great legacy players. When he was in the Mox a couple of years ago, he'd played like 7,000 legacy matches on Magic Online. He's 1-0 up over Kevin Weng, one of 2 brothers on the other side of the table. With Sneak and Show, he's casting all of the science, one might say, omniscience there. Lauren Weng, Kevin Weng's brother, is 1-0 up on the other side of the table with Eldrazi Death and Taxes in the so you kind of Eldrazi displaces alongside all your Thalias that you can squeeze in.
Oh, yeah.
And then actually the match that looks most interesting, gasp, is standard. Logan Nettles is playing Team Energy, and you think he must be trolling you, but no, because Jonathan Zoo's playing the Blue-White God Fairies gift deck, and that's not a deck I've tired of yet. I really enjoy seeing that in action. They're still at 0-0, so that's an early update from the floor.
Thank you, Rich. As you saw, Paulo Vitor Damo de Rosa was able to finish things off there here in game number 1. He was the only player on his team to pick up the game 1 win, but Ben and Eric, well, they're good. They're good for a win or 2 down the line, so it's not all over yet.
Yeah, in this spot, you just have to. Oh, that was great. Ben just looked at the same time so happy, and so I couldn't do anything.
The shrug look.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that means that we're back underway here in standard. Everybody's favorite, Christian Calcano and Ben Stark. Calcano, once like we mentioned, up a game here, playing in a braid. And getting beaten down by 2 Bomac couriers, apparently.
That was awesome. Ben could have played a Kari Zev earlier on that got abraded and then decided to up the tempo by playing both Bomac couriers. If Ben has a removal spell for this Rogue Refiner, this could be amazing.
He doesn't, though. He's got Rampaging Ferocidon, and he's going to pass a turn back now to Calcano. So pump the brakes a little bit there for Ben Stark. Yeah. But a nice threat added to the board. The Rampaging Ferocidon does prove to be quite annoying.
Yeah. One thing about Calcano's sideboard, though, is he seems pretty prepared for this matchup. He has access to free Chandra's defeats.
Wow, really?
Yes.
Okay.
So that'll help him fight. He probably figured that there were going to be a lot of energy decks, and it's the most efficient answer against Glorybringer.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also decent against the red deck, specifically cards like Ferocidon. The idea is that you can essentially gain back tempo. Your opponent plays a free mana card, you play a 1-mana one to answer, and then you get your powerful cards to take over later.
That makes a lot of sense, and of course, that will be the game plan here for Calcano as he's playing the slower, bigger deck. But the hard part with that is you, of course, need to be alive to cast those cards. All right, here's an attack from Ben Stark, kind of forcing the issue and maybe even putting Calcano in a spot where he's willing to trade off multiple creatures. Let's see. Well, he's going to double block, or triple block, I mean, so.
Yes, the triple block here makes sense since Calcano wants to avoid a single shock, for example, destroying the block. But
right.
The triple block here is, it actually, because the triple block is available, I'm wondering what's up Ben's sleeve because it's kind of an interesting one. I don't know if Ben was happy trading Ferocidon for a Long Tusk Cup, and it seems like that might have been his plan.
Yeah, and look, he has a replacement Rampaging Ferocidon. And of course, you know, when you're dealing with menace creatures, it does benefit you to get as many creatures off the battlefield as possible. But he's back in the same position he was in before with the 2 Bomac couriers that cannot attack and the Ferocidon perhaps ready to start rumbling again next turn. We'll see.
Sure, yeah. But for Calcano, this is okay. You lose a cub, but at the end of the day, you get a Fred off the board. That's usually positive for Calcano. He is taking some incidental damage with every creature he plays, so it's important to not take more than necessary. And he does need the Ferocidon off the board, since one of his best cards, Whirler Virtuoso, does get much, much worse against Ferocidon. Since you take, 1 damage per Fropter that you make, it's not very good. It's not good.
This is a good turn, though, again for Calcano. Just continuing to gum up the board. Like, these aren't fancy plays he's making, but Rogue Refiner into Servant of the Conduit, it's just keeping a whole lot of bodies down and saying your attacks on the ground, Ben, are just going to be difficult.
Right. So the best way to beat the red decks, pretty much any format, is don't let them do incidental damage as much as you can. So here Calcano has to take the damage from Ferocidon because he has no answer to it currently in hand, I believe, apart from Confiscation Coup, which he would rather keep for Hazoret. So that's why he's very happy to trade. And the more incidental damage you take from a red deck, the more the creatures have value, and the easier it is for Ramunap Ruins or Sunscorched Desert or Hazoret's ability to finish you off.
Or going to the bigger picture, cards like we saw earlier, Goblin Guide, right? In Modern, these incidental forms of damage that aren't just the straight-up burn spells. Wow, double Earthshaker Kenra now for Stark?
That's actually... this whole sequence is very fascinating.
By the way, a quick update here,
Yep.
Eduardo. Rob Pisano and Eric Froehlich. Eric strikes back.
Yes.
They're now at 1 apiece.
Yeah, post-board Eric has access to Searing Bloods and Searing Blazes, so he gets to have a lot more fun.
That is scary.
Yeah. You get to basically Kitesail Freebooter and look at a bunch of Searings.
See the bad news?
Yes. But yeah, here, this attack is fascinating because Ben basically chose to use both for Shaker Kenra, so the Servant can't block, but he's not attacking with Ferocidon.
He didn't want to trade it for a Rogue Refiner?
Right, but he's also not attacking with the... basically, it's true that attacking with everything would probably not be the best line, since double Rogue Refiner on each of the Bowmats is pretty good, even though... But then Ben would deal 7 damage.
It's true. Half of Calc's remaining life total.
Right, so I find this attack fascinating because it's asking the question, what is Ben's long-term plan? And it seems like it might be, I'm okay with here... you trading anything for your Rogue Refiners for my Earthshaker Kenras, because then I get more value, and I get to get them back later. So yeah, he's just trying to outgrind Calcano in the late game.
Okay. Calcano ended up taking the middle ground there, blocking one of them, but leaving his other Rogue Refiner alive and the Earthshaker Kenra alive on the other side. Mark, you have some updates for us?
Yeah, from the floor, we're cruising the 5-1 matches, seeing who's going to make it to day 2.
Okay.
I was looking at Ben White's, Eric Severson, and Ethan Gajewski's match. Whites and Severson are former team finalists themselves. And it looks like that team is hanging on by a thread right now. Ethan lost his legacy match to Christopher Iali, who top-aided legacy in Vegas. Just got destroyed. His check pile worked like a pile. But right now, Eric Severson just tied up his Modern Burn matchup against Mohamed Kurdmisto. So if he can do that, then they might be able to beat Team Top Deck Keep Games, but right now it's looking a little grim for them.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Appreciate the update.
Yeah, the last turns were kind of fascinating. Christian Calcano decided to reverse gears and start attacking.
I see that. He's crashed back pretty hard, too.
Yeah.
That's a lot of damage, and he has his own Rampaging Ferocidon.
Well, he took Ben's.
Yeah,
he felt
said, that's a pretty dinosaur. I'll take one.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But the other way to beat the red deck, don't give them infinite time. You have to, at some point, turn the corner.
That's right. One of the things you'll see in these type of matchups as well is when that corner does get turned, it usually gets turned quite hard, in that the red decks have a hard time playing defense, right? If they have to start using their burn spells to kill your creatures, they're not happy. If they have to start blocking, their creatures are usually quite bad at it. Case in point, pair of Bomat Couriers sitting there, not exactly the world's best blockers.
Well, actually, if they had more cards, they'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah,
So you think they are good blockers? Because you know what? You're wrong. They're not. They're 1/1s. They're terrible blockers.
That's true, but they sacrifice themselves. So usually what Bomad likes to do is have 2 or 3 cards.
Well, yeah.
block.
I mean, if you put 2 or 3 cards under it, I don't care if you're blocking or not. It's good. But it's just look like they don't do well here, right?
So the further the concept on that, the reason they work effectively as blockers, usually with at least 2 cards. With 1, it's a little weak. Is in the late stages, the burn deck doesn't usually get there with their creatures. The red deck doesn't get there with their creatures, so they have to block. And what the Bomakers allow you to do is essentially go, well, I could attack and get an extra card, but what I'm going to do is block, and that extra card is going to be gain 4 life. Mm-hmm. So they block a creature, gain the life, and then allow you to draw your cards, untap, or if you have extra mana, use your burn spells end of turn, and then that's why they can be pretty efficient in that sense.
So the kind of blockers I like are the ones that Christian just played.
I agree.
Whirler Virtuoso, now that's a good blocker.
Well, his cohort.
No, as a card, it creates a 2/3 and a 1/1 that can block twice, right? Or it can block something of reasonable size. It can trade for cards like On-Crop Crasher.
Yeah. And you can see why Ancrop Crasher is not the greatest card against these energy decks.
Yeah, it's a little late for that, isn't it?
Yeah, because they have Whirler Virtuoso, so you go like, okay, I'll exert, this Virtuoso can't block, and then you go like, I got the Swapter here. Mm-hmm. That's going to block.
By the way, that's exactly what Calcano's about to say here. He's going to make a bunch of Thopters.
Yes. Yeah.
And he is really looking good to close out the match against Ben Stark here in the next couple of turns.
Yeah. It's actually impressive to me how good a 2/3 is. Mm-hmm. People forget, like, as creature stats go, a 2/3 is actually an incredible line because it allows you to do incredible double blocks.
Yeah.
Like, double...
Wow, look at this.
Yeah, this is looking good. And
3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Ben's only at 10.
Yeah.
And that is going to do it. That is Christian Calcano taking the match down against Ben Stark and putting his team just one match away from winning the round. Great stuff from the calculator. In the meantime, Eric Froehlich, who had evened things up, we're back in Modern now, by the way. Let's take a look at what happens now. It looks like a Sin Collector's getting in the red zone.
Okay.
I'm curious what the life totals are. It says 2020, but that can't be true.
That probably.
There we go.
There we go. But still 20 for Rob.
Oh, wow.
That's a pretty big statement. Although, yeah. Here, Xanted Necromancer.
Oh, that's his hinted. Man, I have not seen that in a while.
Yeah, so it is a 2/2 for free. Whenever a human you control dies, make it 2/2 tapped zombie.
Yeah.
So it's a very good way against Goblin Guides. It's pretty decent. But yes, Eric has hit one of the best cards in his deck, though, against the humans deck. In Grim Lavamancer, because if you remember earlier when I was talking about the mana base being great, it does have one key drawback. Instants and sorceries are not friends with that mana base.
Yes, you have a much more limited card pool to choose from when you're trying to make that mana base work. That is for sure.
Right. So what happens is a utility creature like Grim Lavamancer can really take over the game because it's very hard.
Because I just can't lightning bolt it.
Right, you can't. You can Reflector Mage it, which is decent. Mm-hmm. But yes, this Grim Lavamancer gets incidental value. You saw it earlier, killing off Athalia. And that's what happens is what Eric is trying to do, because Rob is at 20, the only way Eric can really win is by outgrinding Rob. Mm-hmm. So the burn deck has to become the control deck, which is not an easy task, just to be very clear.
Right. So Eric's trying to do his best with this Grim Lavamancer. The cards like the Zathrid Necromancer are really annoying because you just have to basically kill it twice, and you can't prioritize other threats over it because they also make zombies.
Right, exactly. If you decided to kill another human, you felt it was more important, they would get an extra zombie. So what you have to do with the Necromancer is essentially, that's the first target. First thing you do, you kill the Necromancer. Second thing you do, kill everything else. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Now, so Eric's playing Searing Blaze here. He's doing it in response to Thalia so that he can make sure to do it. I'm assuming he's targeting the Necromancer as we just described.
Yes.
He will get a zombie, and then, boom, there's Thalia as well.
Right, so the sequence was done here so that Eric doesn't take 2 damage and can fetch a tap Sacred Foundry by being able to essentially use Grim Lavamancer's ability to finish Thalia. Basically making the best use of his mana base here and sequencing his spells probably in the best possible order here. But yeah, both players are actually really short on cards. So if Eric...
I like Eric's spot then.
Repeatable
onboard effects like the Lavamancer, tend to excel in those situations.
Yes, it's very close. It really depends what's on top of the deck here.
Yeah, it really does. Because another thing is that I don't like about Eric's position here is that Rob's at 20.
Yes.
And Eric doesn't really have a whole lot going on. I mean, it's going to take him forever to draw, Lightning Bolt you, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. One thing that was interesting here is Rob had the option earlier to, I believe, Phantasmal Image.
Uh-huh.
And it was interesting that Rob decided not to, but because the Phantasmal Image would probably have ended up being a zombie, and then the Thalia could have come down later. So that's a lot to unpack, but basically Eric could have gone Searing Blaze, the Necromancer, and then Grim Lavamancer, the Necromancer, and then Lavamancer, the Sin Collector, so that the image isn't more than a zombie. But then the Thalia would be in play, and the Thalia is an efficient body and is pretty good against burn.
Looks like Rob wasn't actually at 20. He was at 18, and I believe he just cracked that.
No, he basically took free damage from the Searing Blaze.
Oh, okay.
So
basically,
he
should be at 16 then.
So basically, what happened?
What did he do on end step there?
He cracked
Was it a
Horizon
Canopy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He cracked it.
Cracking it. Canopy does deal damage, but it's an extremely good late game card because you don't take any damage.
Right. You just get the card out of it. Okay, so he's at 17.
Yes.
Facing down Goblin Guy and Lavamancer, 1 card in the graveyard, and I believe 2 to 3 cards in hand for Froehlich. So,
I believe.
Where do we go from here?
It really depends on the top of the deck. If Rob can find a core threat, so a Reflector Mage would be pretty nice, just because it's a 2 free body. A Meddling Mage is okay if Rob can guess well. But I think here...
I mean, he may have information about Eric's hand from the Sin Collector, right?
Yes,
although
that is true.
It could have been a long time ago.
But in Stay I'll be there. There are a lot of cards you can't fire off that quickly, and he does have Grim Lavamancer, so that might have tied up his mana bits. The cards I think Rob boarded in and most wants to see here, the lowest of them is Anafenza the Foremost, because it's a 4/4 body and extremely hard to deal with.
Okay. I don't know what Rob named here.
Hopefully we'll get a...
Yeah, we're going to try to find out, but...
Yeah.
Because Eric has Lightning Bolt in his hand.
Yes.
And he had drawn it last turn.
Right.
Oh,
Searing
never
Blaze.
mind. There's a Searing Blaze. Anyway, so he clearly didn't name that.
Name damage to my face.
Yes. And boom, he's going to take another 3 and lose his creature.
Yeah. The other... But
and
the
Eric
card,
just bought it. Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
Eric's also bought another Grim Lavamancer activation with that. He's just been piling these up.
Yeah, Eric's really transitioning the burn deck into the control deck. And the card that Rob really wants to draw is Campbell, Console of Allocation.
Oh, yeah, I remember that guy.
But yeah, first we have Anafenza.
So right on time. How do you do that? Every time you call one out, they just show right up.
Yeah, I seem to have that ability. I play some card games with my girlfriend, and then whatever the worst case scenario could be happens.
By the way, and Eric's actually showing how correct you were about saying how difficult it is, because he needed to use both a Lightning Bolt and a Grim Lavamancer activation, and that is a way that Rob can claw his way back in this game. Rich, you've been out on the field checking out the 5-1s. What have you seen for us?
Okay, so Logan Nettles wins 2-0. Lauren Wynn wins 2-0, which means that the Jonathan Angelescu legacy match is going to decide it. Angelescu's 1-0 up. He has Sneak Attack in play. He has Grizzlebrand in play. He's just drawn 7 extra cards.
So you just walked away and came here,
right? No, I didn't. I thought, I'm going to watch him kill his opponent. Except I didn't.
What?
He made another Grizzlebrand, drew another 7 cards later in the game. Could he find another creature to finish off Kevin Wang? He could not. And at the end of the game, he's like, I'm going to portent this, I'm going to ponder this, I'm going to brainstorm this. I was like, no creature, no creature, no creature, no creature. Concede 1-1, so the deciding match with a Sneak Attack double Grizzlebrand loses its game 3.
Wow, that does not happen very often. Okay.
Yeah, no, those are the games to remember. But
Hey, the board's finally clear.
right,
Syrian Blood finished off the last of it, and now the Goblin Guide starts attacking. It's been sitting there patiently waiting turn after turn after turn.
yeah, the most patient of all Goblin Guides.
That's right.
Yeah, like essentially, yeah, Eric had drawn a Syrian Blood. This looks pretty good.
And yeah, he actually ended up having 6 extra damage in his hand, and I assume our life totals were wrong because he just won the game, and that's going to do it. So that's Eric Froehlich winning his MASH 2-1. He lost the first game and then came back and battled back.
For what it's worth, I thought that win was extremely impressive. Many players would.
It's worth a lot. That's why you're here, buddy.
Well, I mean,
and I agree.
Yeah, it was just like if Eric had ever attacked with Goblin Guide, he probably would have been in a rough spot.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew the plan. The plan was, as unlikely as this seems, I will kill every creature Rob has, and then this Goblin Guide will be my burn spell.
Unbelievable. He just had a couple of burn spells to finish off his opponent, and that was it. And that, of course, means that we have a great Game 3 staged here that's going to decide the round.
Yes.
Not the match, the round. Like the player who wins this game is going to look at their opponent, their teammates, and say, "We got there," and the other one's going to have to go, "Sorry, fellas. Yeah. Let's come back next round and try to make sure we make day 2." So, who's it going to be in Legacy? Paulo Vitor, Damo, Rosa, or Ben Friedman? Looks like both players have no board going outside of a few mana sources, with the exception of that one Noble Hierarch there for Paulo. And some pretty well built out graveyards, so they have certainly exchanged resources on some level, but as the dust is settled, not much going.
Yeah, so what's interesting here for the graveyard resource part is that Friedman is playing 4 Snapcaster Mages, while Paulo, because he has to play Noble Hierarch, cannot afford to do the same.
Okay.
Yeah. But Paulo has one of the most interesting legacy cards in his hand.
Which is?
Sylvan Library.
Oh, I love that card.
Yeah. Yeah, Sylvan Library, one of the quirkiest cards to have ever been printed, in my view.
Definitely a weird card. Like, what happened there, right? Somebody in design's like, let's make a green card, and let's have it draw you cards and do all the things that green just doesn't do.
Right. You can trade life for cards. That's a very green effect.
Mm-hmm.
Or not.
Not at all.
No. But
in fact, it's the opposite.
Yeah,
it's a black effect traditionally, which is color pie not adjacent. So it's its enemy. There it is, though. Sylvan Library.
I can appreciate a Legends copy of that card as well.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I wonder what language it is, though.
If it's Legends,
if it's the Italian one, I'm going to dock him a few.
That
points.
seems like English.
Okay, I'm into the English one.
Perfect then. But yeah, the thing with Sylvan Library is essentially you get to turn your draw step into a brainstorm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happens, isn't it?
Yes. You can choose to pay 4 life to keep a card. So generally the play pattern with Sylvan Library in matchups like this where life totals are only relevant after a certain amount of time is the first time you just go, I lose 8.
You just take the cards.
Right. So it turns the brainstorm effect into Ancestral Recall. Then after that, you can start going further. But yeah, here
one of the only really good answers for it there, Abrupt Decay. Yeah, it's like a mini brainstorm, right? Because you only can rearrange and put cards back from the ones that you had drawn then. They don't just go into your hand, but still it lets you manipulate the top of your library in such an effective way in Legacy, especially when you can match it up with fetch lands.
Yeah. Sylvan Library has some of the quirkiest rules, though. If you ever cast a brainstorm on upkeep with Sylvan Library, the card specifically says that it is for cards you've drawn this turn.
That's right.
So apparently what I've been told is the only way to properly resolve a Sylvan Library when you have drawn cards before is to call a judge over.
Is that a Marsh Casualties?
Yes, that is a Marsh Casualties.
Wow, we're going way back.
Yeah.
All right, Marsh Casualties in the yard. Diabolic Edict is the last card for Friedman. And somehow we found ourselves in a race scenario. Noble Hierarch versus Snapcaster Mage. You can't really come to that.
No.
There's a brainstorm now for Paulo.
We're still in the cards in play phase, or in hand, rather. Cards in play will come later, but yes. The plan is Friedman has less mana.
Eduardo.
What?
I see a Jace.
Yes, that is
I see
Paulo's
Jace the
plan.
Mind Sculptor.
That is definitely Paulo's plan. Man, Jace the Mind Sculptor.
Oh, I love that card so much.
I used to play that in Standard.
Me
and
too, man.
Well, actually, I had to play against it a lot, too. That's
Me
less
too,
fun.
man. I remember loving no card more than Jace at the time. And then one time it all kind of came crashing down when I was playing in a PTQ. And my opponent did, one of the worst feelings in Magic, which is Jace plus, you can keep that on top. And you're like, but wait, what? I have to draw that card now? And then you just never want to play again. It was great. I love Jace.
But by the way, if you ever want to have fun, if your opponent...
Wow, look at this from Paulo. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, just ripping through his deck. But
he found a fetch on the last card, too. Go ahead.
Get rid of the fatal pushes. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the funnest part with Jace is if you can get... if you top their card and they have a fetch land, they can shuffle to avoid drawing a horrible card.
Uh-huh.
Well, whatever it is, just keep it on top most of the time because they'll always fetch.
That's true. They have to, right? Kind of game theory-wise, they're just... By the way, one thing that you'll note is that Paulo's playing a little bit more deliberately than normal. He's probably got Eric sitting next to him, saying, hey, what about this, what about that, as they plan out the rest of these turns. Clearly, this game is going to come down to Jace the Mind Sculptor as it currently sits. They know exactly what his hand... Oh, boy, both of them are over there, including Ben Stark.
Yes.
And they're all talking about it.
Yeah.
They don't trust Paulo, so...
He's only one of the best players in the world.
Yeah, of all time, Paulo's picking up his Noble Hierarch, almost goading Ben Friedman into just casting his Edict effect, which he kind of just has to do anyway, right? That's how those work. It doesn't get better.
That's true. Well, I mean...
Oh, but Thoughtseize for Ben Friedman. Kiss Chase goodbye. Oh, man, that was a huge swing there for Friedman because... Paulo was all lined up. His plan is to crack this fetch land, shuffle away that jank, and keep the and then cast Jace next turn. And that's not what's going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I think
now it's all about Snappy.
Yeah, the hard part there for Paulo was probably what they were discussing is do we put two bad cards on top, or do we put Jace on top in case our opponent top decks a discard spell?
Yes, and they decided against it.
Which I believe is correct. It didn't pan out that way, but the thing is, you're like, well, they have one draw step.
Yeah.
And if they don't have discard, then this is perfect.
Then you're shuffling away two bad cards, keeping the best stuff for yourself, etc. Mark, what did you find for us out there on the field?
You know what? I have an update from the Ben White's Severson-Gajewski match. Last we saw them, Gajewski had already lost. They were hanging on by a thread. Severson really needed to win, and he kept a one-lander in Game 3, and he never drew another land, and he won.
Oh, wow.
Yes, his burn deck was able to beat Death Shadow, and that's kind of what happens when Death Shadow does enough damage to itself against burn. The sad part was it was all for naught because in the rubber game, Ben White's going up against Rick Chon in Standard. White's fell, and so Team Top Deck Keep took the match, and they are definitely in for tomorrow, and we'll have to see White and Severson next round.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And back to business here. Still just Snapcaster Mage is the only thing left standing. Paulo went ahead and used his Wasteland to take Ben off of his only red mana source. And he's got Vendilion Click as well. Looks like he's going to target himself to get rid of the days that he wouldn't really have a whole lot of use for in his hand anyway.
Yeah.
And he's going to try to win a race. Here we go.
Race.
I like this.
Trade everything, then race.
That is not a true name nemesis, is it?
It looks like it.
Oh, Paulo has a true name nemesis. I will name you, my friend. And this is a very quick clock now. Oh, no. What was that? What did he want? I guess he figured it couldn't do anything anyway?
That's quite possible.
I mean, he just attacked his Snapcaster Mage into True Name Nemesis.
So, something that made Paulo be very advantaged in this game is that Paulo saw the... I was going to say Blood Crypt, but we're in Legacy. The Badlands. The only red source that Ben Friedman had, and Wastelanded it. Ben Friedman saw True Name Nemesis, saw the Pyroblast in his hand, and then saw the lack of red mana.
Oops.
Well, there we go.
And that's going to do it. Paulo Vitor, Damo Rosa wins his match 2-1 and gives the round to him, Eric Froehlich, and Ben Stark, the triple Hall of Famer team. 2-1, 2-1, 0-2 takes round number 7, and we will see them in day number 2. We're going to be back with Time Walk Magic after these commercials.